This is the last video in this series. It will discuss fall. Fall, like the spring, is a very active time for the beekeeper. But during this time, you will prepare the bees to survive the winter. Autumn will include September and October, as we have already discussed your activities during November. We'll start with September and what the bees are doing. In September, populations will be getting smaller still. It is at this time they will be getting into serious winter prep mode, letting their populations get really small, just large enough that they can survive the winter, but not so large that they consume all of their honey. Also in September, they will lay their winter bee eggs. These are the bees that must survive the winter. Mite populations begin to affect the colony at this point, and it is at this time that you will do your mite treatments. Mite treatments are discussed in later lectures. Also in September, drone expulsion begins in earnest. This can be an amusing time for the beekeeper, as you can literally watch worker bees dragging drones out of the hive and refusing to let them re-enter. Now we'll discuss what you should be doing in September. In September, temperatures are still relatively high in the middle of the day. It's an ideal time to do your final inspections. Verify that you have a queen. You can do this by finding her or simply by finding eggs, and make sure all stages of brood are present. Make a frame count and determine honey levels. Remember, as I've said before, you must leave them with 100 pounds of honey to survive the winter. That is 10 full frames of honey. You can also combine weaker colonies together. When you combine two weaker hives, you must first locate and remove one of the queens. Once the queen is removed, put all the frames of bees into a single hive body. Then, take all the frames of bees from the weaker queenless hive to the new hive. However, do not place them directly into the box with the current residents. Instead, you will leave them in their hive body and place that hive body on top of their new home. On the hive that will receive this hive body, place a layer of newspaper across the entire top. This layer of newspaper will prevent these new bees from rushing right into their new home. This is important because the bees must get to know each other before they are allowed to assimilate. Using your hive tool, make 4 or 5 slits in the newspaper. Make certain that these slits are between the frames so that the bees may have a starting point to chew through. They will chew through the newspaper. Working together, they can get to know each other. Eventually, all the bees from this new hive body will move down. When that happens, you can remove this excess hive body. You can also take excess honey from a heavier hive and give it to a lighter hive. For example, if one hive has well over 10 frames of honey and another hive only has 8, feel free to take the excess honey from the heavy hive and give it to the lighter hive. While you're making your combines and redistributing your honey, make certain that all your hives are 2 hive bodies tall. This reduces the amount of space they have to heat during the winter. In the fall, plant resources become scarce. But it is at this time that they are raising their winter bees, so feel free to begin pollen feeding at this time. This will ensure healthy, large, and strong overwinter bees. At this time, wasps and other insects may attempt to get into the hive to steal the honey. If this becomes too much of a problem, all you need to do is reduce the entrance. This will create a smaller space for the guard bees to protect. Now let's move to October. We will start with what they are doing. At this point, overwinter bees are emerging from their cells. The population has dropped to its cluster size, and they will begin to cluster at night when temperatures are around 41 degrees. In October, brood production will stop. As their population is at the size that they want it to survive the winter, there is no need to produce any more young. Not only that, but there are no longer any resources to support the production of brood. Now we'll move on to what you should be doing. Continue to feed the bees until it freezes. Any excess feed you give them in the fall reduces their reliance on their stored honey, making that stored honey available to them in the winter when you will no longer be able to feed them. If you haven't reduced the entrance, do so now so that the wind does not whip through the entrance. Finally, you will have to wrap your hives. Do this in the end of October. If there is any excess honey in these extra hive bodies, You can give it back to them in the spring. I always liken wrapping a hive to wrapping a Christmas present. You've already had the entrance reduced. You're already certain that they have 100 pounds of honey to make the winter. Now all you must do is buy a roll of 30-pound roofing felt. Literally wrap it around the hive. Staple it once you've made one full revolution. You will see that it hangs over the top. Simply cut the felt at the corners and fold it down on top of your hive. Staple these folds so they don't pop up, and you have successfully wrapped your hive. That concludes our year-long journey through the bee yard. Please address all questions to the forum.